Hello and welcome again to the Art Gallery on Print Island. I am your curator, Chris Hyde, and today I'm excited to welcome to the gallery Silas Amos. Silas, thank you for coming in and visiting the Art Gallery.
Thank you for having me, Chris. Intrigued to find out what we're going to talk about.
Awesome. It's all about you and all the stuff that's on your...
Well, one of the world's fullest subjects.
Yeah, I think you know some things about it. So, all right. So we're going to start off, for those in the audience who don't know you. Silas, do you mind introducing yourself and a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So I'm a designer and design strategist, which I guess means that I started out as a designer for the first half of my career and ended up talking more than I was drawing, talking to more senior people, I guess. And then one day I turned around and it seemed to be all meetings and no drawing. So I do both those things. I work with brands fundamentally to try and, I guess, get to their essence and then figure out the implications of that for design and how they can kind of operate through the world through the marvelous tangible thing that is design as communication, really. That's me in a nutshell.
Okay, well, let's go back to the drawing part. Where did the drawing start? Did you get formal education?
Well, the drawing started possibly like a lot of dyslexic people, and most designers are dyslexic. Drawing was something I could do when I wasn't very good at spelling, and a passion, and that's something I loved as a child. And then I went to art college, and I realized that much as I'd love to be a painter and live in Paris, really I also wanted to earn a living. So commercial artist is, what falls out of that. That would be the old expression, I guess, for what, we do in this industry. I then did a degree in information graphics, which was all quite practical things like teaching kids how to tie shoelaces visually and stuff like that. I seem to remember I was laughing with some old college friends this weekend. I did one about how to put on a condom. It was the era of AIDS, Chris. Different times, how to put on a condom, and I remember that raised many eyebrows from the professors. Anyway, I graduated from that. I got my first job at an agency called Brewer Jones Knowles. That agency broke up after a year. Happily, I was invited to join the offshoot of that agency, which was a company called Jones Knowles Ritchie, JKR, which is pretty big in the branding industry. I guess quite a few people will have heard of it. They're doing very well. So I joined there as a 22-year-old, wet behind the ears, and drawing, by the way, Chris, because there weren't no computers. We were painting the type and marking up our artwork on pieces of tracing paper very neatly and scratching off the mistakes with a razor blade. Those were the days. Then computers turned up. Then I designed. Then I ended up doing the strategy stuff at JKR. I left there in 2015, I think, and been doing my own thing ever since, for brands, for agencies, making ends meet, keeping it going.
Right. And I'm looking at your walls, and maybe that answers this next question, but I'd love to hear, where your inspirations have come from. Like, who have been some of your influences?
I guess if we were looking for a kind of a visual rosebud moment, it tends to go back to childhood, doesn't it? I love pop art because that was around a lot, even in the early 70s, which has been probably my first cultural memories. Those big, bright colours, bold shapes, all of that stuff was very much out there. First piece of packaging I actively remember, and I was probably only about 5, was the Winsor & Newton ink packaging in the UK, which had a collection of great artists doing little, if it was emerald green, someone would draw an emerald, and it was all very groovy and very artful. So I remember that from being very little. But pop art would be part of it, and you can see there's a few sort of French carafes and things on the back there, the vintage stuff, like a lot of students in the 80s, our nostalgia then was for the 50s. So I liked all of that retro thing. And I guess people probably now, they seem to have a nostalgia for the noughties, which is somewhat disconcerting, seems like 5 minutes ago. So yeah, a bit of vintage, I guess, always. But, trying to push that forward and be contemporary with it. And I guess that maybe relates to branding a little bit. Most brands that are established have a history and a legacy. And what I'm trying to do, like many others really, I guess, is project that into a future rather than just a past. Retro progressive might be a coined phrase for it.
Huh. What's your process on that? Like, how do you approach that? Like,
With respect, typically, as in, there's always something good in a brand. You just have to find it. It could be a visual legacy. It could be assets that they've got. DBAs is the modern catchphrase for that, but, equities. It could be a founder's ethos. It could be an ingredient. It doesn't matter. There's always something inside. Every brand has an inner spirit. And all someone like me is trying to do is catch that spirit, put a formula around it so that you can kind of quantify it a little bit and convey that into some words that people can draw. I think historically a lot of brand strategy was done by the advertising agencies. There was always 20 of those in a room to one poor designer in important meetings. And I think the thing with comms strategy, without disrespecting it, is it is designed fit for purpose for its medium, which is narrative. Typically, I can tell a story on a poster and I can tell a really long story on a TV ad in 15 or 30 seconds, but you can't on a pack. If comms strategy is fit for purpose for a novel, what we do has to be fit for purpose for a haiku. It has to be brutally simple, but you also have to be able to draw it. So branding is a visual medium. So if you can't draw the strategy has no utility to a designer. So this is a very long-winded answer, but you're trying to catch the spirit, formulate it, figure out what's different about it, and express it in a way that someone can draw, but equally in a way that they want to sharpen their pencils and get drawing, rather than boring them into submission with too much sort of boring marketing strat. A designer just wants to know what's the point and go off and sharpen the pencil and deliver it, typically, I think.
Now, having pored over your art and seen it for quite a while, again, I told you I was going to man crush on you during this.
Fire away.
What you just mentioned there is kind of like what I heard is a little bit of reduction, trying to reduce things down. And I think there's a beauty in the work that you've done, kind of mashing together that pop art feel with that reductionist. Because I see so much bold, like on your wall, so much bold color and not singular graphics, but not overly done graphics, like kind of like a beautiful simplicity, like that unites a lot of the branding that I think you've done. And we'll get into. I'm going to visit your website in a second, but like that. Do you think about it as? And I don't want to make it about reductionism, but do you have like a reductionist thought process? Like
I've probably been trained into one. So there's a sort of number of ways I could almost answer that question. I suppose the first thing is I actually actively try not to particularly have a style, because the style should be driven by the brand, so to speak. It probably just tends to be that I do tend to work on things where a certain amount of colourfulness would help. I mean, I did work for a few years on Guinness, and that was all black. But I'm not in the luxury goods space, if you see what I mean. In FMCG, which is mostly what I work in, tends to be a colourful medium because it's broadly needs to shout on the shelf. But to your point about the simplicity, I suppose, I was brought up really in this world of the kind of the competition was on the shop shelf. If the shop shelf has tens of thousands of SKUs in a store, and the consumer is standing in front of your product for a fraction of a second and trying to filter and process information, you better be damn sure it's simple, because it has to work in a fraction of a second at a glance. And so there is a certain sort of essentialism to it, I guess, but it's not minimal because it's also a bit curvy and warm, And I also think that sometimes there's layers of detail to these things. It's almost like you want to punch someone between the eyes with like something simple, but it's quite nice if it's got almost like vinyl has a thrum to it, rather than a Spotify download. You want that craft to have a thrum behind everything, so that it's not just one note, and you get a sense of quality, even when it's simple. And I suppose, to extend the metaphor, if you forgive me, Chris, it's a bit like, if a French baguette is a really simple thing. What is it? Flour and water and some heat. But there are some really great French baguettes, and there's some really average ones, and we all know the difference. And so I think that even simple needs a lot of hard work to get there. What was it? Leonardo da Vinci said, "Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication," and he should know.
Yeah, and that's why I was tripping over my words, because I didn't want, when I said reductionist, it could automatically mean something that it's reduction of what I'm saying about your work.
No, I understand where you're going. And honestly, when you've been working for 35 plus years, I've got no ego about this stuff, Chris. It's like, fire away, be mean. It's okay. I've heard worse.
Yeah. So I do want to get into show and tell, because I want the audience to kind of see what I'm talking about. So if you don't mind, I'm going to call up your website, and if you wanted to call out a couple of, I'm just going to scroll through your sample work, but
okay,
if you wanted to call out a couple things that you're particularly proud of, that would be super cool. So I'm going to call up. Here we go.
Well, you're calling it up, Chris, just to sort of frame this in terms of what's going to interest and pull out what's interesting to your audience. Is this an audience of design creatives, or an audience of print production people? Who?
Sure. It's all the above. I want the creatives to see what can be done, and I want the people on the print side to appreciate how you work and applying it. So
sure. Okay. Okay, gosh, where do we start? Why don't we just start with what's at the top there? Scroll back up to the top for a moment,
sure.
Chris. Oh, it's gone now. It was the Peter Blake thing. If you see the little Budweiser can there,
yeah,
that might be a place to click, because it's kind of fun. This is art, really, because it's designed by Peter Blake, Sir Peter Blake, I should say. Pop artist, created the Sgt. Pepper album cover. There's that thing about you should never meet your heroes, but he refutes that saying. He's a lovely man.
That's great.
Anyway, this was done while I was at JKR, and it took years to finally land in the store. It was one of those mad jobs. But this is fundamentally he's got a set of what you might call icons that he's created over the years, stars and hearts and targets and the like. And this is just an artistic pop art can that he designed. But if I let me just pull something off the wall for you for a moment to sort of share, because it will be more interesting maybe to your print audience. So if you see that, that's kind of like a lot of his iconography as well.
Right.
And this was a thing that I did with HP when we were just trying to play with the possibilities of print technology and digital technology. And obviously digital technology has got that ability to swap colors in and out, swap graphics around a grid, transpose things. And so I felt that this kind of was done a little bit after the can was designed, but you can see there's a similarity to it.
Right.
This was like an experiment where we got Sir Peter to basically design one of these in his conventional colors, and then we got the HP technology to transpose colors, transpose the grid. So in other words, what we did is we printed 100 of these, and every one of those 100 was different because the things had moved around or the colors had moved around, etc., etc. And we actually pushed the algorithm quite a bit to deliver that. A guy called 𝐒𝐤𝐥𝐿, who works at HP over in Israel, helped out with it. Lovely fella. Effie Berman as printers worked on it. I felt that was really innovative for a simple reason, which is we all, those of us that are lucky enough to have a few spare dollars will like to buy a limited edition artwork signed by an artist, and this is a fantastic thing to have. So if you had a typical edition of 100, they're all the same. But what if you had an edition of 100 where each one is unique? To me, it was like, come on, Taschen, come on, art print world. We're now in a place where you can create intentional variants with a ghost in the machine. So we did that job, and then I took the prints along to see Sir Peter, and it was really interesting because, firstly, his first reaction was a bit like, huh, oh. And it was kind of like, because it was like seeing his child with a weird haircut. Do you know what I mean? Because the colours were in the wrong place, so
Right.
the objects were in the wrong place. And then he kind of got into it, and he's like, I like some of these. Anyway, he signed them, or he signed a bunch of them for us. And to me, when an artist signs their work, that is a signifier that it is now art. Do you see what I mean?
Right.
So what I loved in that little slightly rambling recount is it was innovative. It was, surely there's a business idea in this, which does tend to help commercial art and all of that. And it looks cool. And I love the fact that he's, in his 80s, and we went to explain to him that the digital print technology and how it works and the algorithm, and he's like listening, and he just went, so what you're asking me to do is get my art to talk to the machine and my machine to talk to the art. I was like, I love you. This is one of the things where you're just saying, that's cool, right? And, it's not some 20-year-old in a backwards baseball hat that's really on it. It's someone at the other end of their creative journey who's really on it. So that, I suppose, just relates to these cans as a thing of, bringing a bit of visual joy to things. What's it got to do with Budweiser? I'm not entirely sure, other than the fact that they're a mass cultural brand and it has a relationship on that level, I suppose. And it's a bit fancy. So yeah, that's one as a story.
Right. Well, I love. Honestly, I love the fact where you took the photo, because there is a resonance between the stained glass and what's going on the cans.
That's his own artwork of Alice in Wonderland in the background there.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
There he is. Lovely man.
Oh, what a great story.
All right. So do meet your heroes. That's the moral of the story. And ask them to do something interesting. Are you asking me to pick out another couple?
Yeah, let's do two more.
Okay. Well, should we continue the theme for a minute?
Sure.
I'm trying to find ones in here that have got something to do with print and something to do with creativity at the same time. So very quickly, if we click on Dulwich Gin down the bottom there, so along next to that's right, next to the polar bear. So this is Dulwich Gin is made in Dulwich, where there is a Dulwich picture gallery, which has a lot of beautiful Georgian art in it. And the Georgian era is when London Gin got started. So we were doing something from and of Dulwich, which had a Georgian touch to it, but clearly there you can see it's kind of super modern. And it's really just to say it's the same thing. We got a bunch of different characters from the picture gallery. We got a bunch of different colours, and we transposed the colours and the characters so every bottle label is unique. So it's just an extrapolation of the same principle, really, that we were just talking about with the Peter Blake work, but with a commercial application where no two bottles are the same, because there are kind of infinite. It's a bit like a combination lock, you know what I mean? There's only 3 numbers, but infinite variety,
right?
Or semi-infinite variety. Every bottle is unique because it can be. So yeah, that's just a kind of a commercial application of the same thing to some degree. And then you can see those silly posters there with that is proper Georgian street talk. I got a dictionary of Georgian slang. And wow, if you think that we're ribald in our era, you should see what the Georgians came up with. Yeah. Wow. I can't remember what a Bartholomew baby is, but I have a feeling it's a child born out of wedlock.
Maggot boiler. Okay.
Yeah, you maggot boiler.
Oh, I gotta use it.
Yeah, I think rappers need to get on it with some Georgian phrase books, to be honest.
Catch fart. I could work that into a rap. Yeah,
exactly. So that was a fun little job.
That's fun.
So maybe if we're also looking print technology and creativity, if you maybe click on stay at home, which is okay, that's second, bottom row, second from the left.
All right.
So this is, God, COVID feels like a fever dream now, doesn't it? But COVID, when it first started, was like we all suddenly found ourselves on a war footing, didn't we? And like anyone in the industry, let's not have Boris Johnson talking. That'll make everyone sick. Is there any a film here? Let's forget about this one then, because we don't want to watch him talk. We can edit.
Wait,
there we go. There it is. It's all right.
There we go.
So this
what a great
was
logo, by the way.
A job where I had a friend that was in the newspaper industry, basically a lady called Tracy DeGrusse, and she was in charge of the organisation which represented all of the UK newspapers. There was a moment very early in COVID where it was great weather. Everyone was going out and sitting in parks and passing on the illness. And this was a problem because with no antidote, the hospitals were overflowing and so people were dying. So it was a very serious thing about don't go out to the park, please. And so the question was, how can the newspaper industry help stop people going out to the park and infecting each other? And the thought was, you can't tell them not to, because if they're stupid enough to be doing this, they're not going to take a slap on the wrist. They already don't care. They're rebels. So we had to do something that felt a little bit more, got under their guard and felt a bit more positive and a bit more witty, for want of a better word. Weirdly, at the same time, I'd been chatting to a friend of mine, a designer called 𝐒𝐤𝐥𝐸𝐿, who had shown me this mark, stay at home. He's going, I just drew this the other day. He's a great typographer. He's like, drew this the other day. He's got a use for anything. And he showed me that on like the Wednesday. You know, we were all thinking about this stuff. And then I got this brief on the Thursday, and it's like, I've got a plug and play solution here. Brilliant, you know. So obviously it's the at stay at home is the mark there.
It's wonderful.
And then we had a chats with the government, and then we did the artworks, and this was on the same. It was the first time ever in the UK on the same morning. Every single national and local paper in the UK on the Friday all had a version of this on their front page, and then the back page, so to speak, of the newspaper was a nice sort of rainbow, which was all related to the NHS in the UK. And it was almost like, so it's just saying staying at home for Britain was just like a little, you know, put it up in your window, and it's a little bit, you know, well, it's a bit more pop art, isn't it, in a way? But it was just trying to be cheerful about a serious subject. But the groovy print story here is first time all of the newspapers carried the same thing on their covers. We did it in a week. I was literally I'm no art worker, and I was literally sending some artwork out to like the Irish Times or something, or the Northern Irish Times on like the Friday night. And I was having to look up on Google, how do you spell Ireland again? Is it with an E or not an E? And it's like, this is a bit near the knuckle that I'm holding this responsibility. And I think it works. They had statistics that it had resonated, and they could see some kind of a statistical response to this, which is kind of good because, you know, I wouldn't go quite so far as like we were saving lives, but we were doing some good, you know, which is nice. I'm just sorry that we've got Mr. Johnson there as the frontman and ambassador
there we go.
At the time. But hey, you can't have everything, can you?
Wow.
So that's 3, Chris, unless you want me to keep going.
Oh boy, I want a bonus one. Let me pick one. Let me pick one. There's a couple. I mean, I love the adore me, and I love this identity is.
That identity for cancer research. Honestly, I mean, all I did was change colours because it was an existing thing, and I changed colours for a business context. So maybe not the most exciting story.
All right.
If we wanted a packaging one, and Adore Me's just changed, we've just rebranded that. So, as a suggestion, maybe Ramona's, which is the third one down the left-hand edge, the lady doing that.
This one.
So yeah, Heavenly Hummus. There we go. So this is a UK hummus. It came with, you know, classic client brief. Effectively was we want to be the #1 hummus. which is a business objective, not a creative objective, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That it's a very big pot of hummus. So it's generous in that sense. The original design it had these weird colors on it, like they're almost like Sex Pistols album cover colors, you know. Wow. They're like fluorescent yellows and pinks, which is not what you'd associate with the normally crafty, gentle world of hummus authentic design. But that was the one that, if we talk about respecting the past and moving forward, it's like we've got to keep those colors because they're really weird. But then everything else we kind of changed. So we made more of the brand name, Ramona, the lady who runs it. All of the kind of typography and the like was sort of almost inspired by craft beer language of like modern craft beers, mm-hmm. through these punk colors. And then we added the little kind of goddess of plenty there with her big spoon. Just put a note of weirdness, an extra note of weirdness in the brand, because in my estimation, what gets brands remembered isn't what makes them conventional, it's what makes them strange. So a bit of strangeness always helps. And it's now the UK's #1 hummus. So that's very pleasing that it did that. And I think it's a case of like, the obvious thing to do always is have a photograph of a pot of hummus on a pot of hummus, you know, appetite appeal. But hummus looks horrible when you photograph it. It's lovely to eat, but I don't think it's no oil painting to look at. And so we didn't do that thing. We did something that looks more visually confident. And I think in branding, confidence is magnetic and it attracts people to, if you believe in yourself, others will believe in you too, you know, as in politics, as in, you know, celebrity, whatever. So yeah, this I guess is a pack which is evoking a pretty strong sense of personality and self-belief. And maybe that's what's got it some of its success. It was already doing well, it just ended up doing better.
That's a wonderful story. And talking about, going back to one of your statements earlier, just the layers, you know, and this is the kind of detail stuff that I just love as a designer, is you got the big and bold clearly, but then the little touches, like the layers of different lights and darks, and just the pattern back there, and in the stripes within the words. It's that kind of like attention to detail that I just find so lovely about your work.
Well, thank you. I guess that's the analog thrum, isn't it? I mean, the other thing is, I really hope makes your edit on this, Chris, is just to point out that I often might draw a sketch for a solution these days, and I will definitely do the design strategy, but I am not the designer of all of this work. I work with many talented people. This one was done by Sean Harvey. Dulwich one I did with Derek and Eric. Obviously Peter Blake did Peter Blake. My point being that I don't want to give the impression this is all stuff I've quote drawn. I've maybe done a scribble. I've certainly been involved in the conversations, and I've been a very proactive midwife, but the baby doesn't necessarily belong to me.
Totally get it, and I appreciate your pointing that out. But whoever and however it was done, it's just lovely work.
So, thank you.
Absolutely. All right, we'll end that session. I mean, I could go on for hours here, but I want to respect your time.
Thank you.
So, just wonderful stuff. I have one last sample and Paul Regan. I stole this from him.
Yes.
Over F.E. Berman, and I carried it across London. And this is not your tiny book, because I did get to see.
I was going to say that one there, you should have been able to carry across London quite easily.
Exactly. I didn't. No. I think he only had one last sample of that, and that wasn't going to make it. I was not going to pull that.
The idea, because this is like a little mini portfolio of my work, and the brief I gave myself was, it's a coffee table book for a mouse.
Yeah, it's the opposite end of the spectrum. It's this behemoth. So yeah, so carrying that across the bridge and in the rain, I had to keep it really close to me. So it may be a little bit warped, but yeah, this is such a lovely book. And if you wanted to share anything and any kind of story about this.
Sure. I mean, it was a learning exercise for me, which was, it's always nice, isn't it? So this was, the client was HP Digital Print. a lady called Nancy James asked me to help kind of almost put together case studies and some thinking on the creative use of digital print. The Coca-Cola name bottles had just kind of come out, and they were trying to push the commerciality and inspire designers. So that's what this thing was for, and marketeers a bit. I did it with a designer called James Lunn. It's a classic case where the printers, 𝐸𝐵𝐺𝐸, are, you could say digital print, and you imagine it's almost like loading a photocopy tray. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, what else do you need to do? They're like craftsmen of the digital age, which is why I love them. Great printer for anyone in the UK. Use 𝐸𝐵𝐺𝐸. And we were just trying to push the opportunities in digital print. So, for example, you can print white spots on a coloured piece of paper. That's like new, you know, in our world. Or you can create like limitless versions of something. So we took a piece of artwork by Super Mundane, and so each book had a limited art print in it, which took no more than feeding it through an algorithm, and the like. So yeah, it was just a fun thing to work on. I've got the original version of it here, Chris, which has got, you can see the spine is all of the bound paper, making, you know, rainbows seem to be a thing, right? But yeah, I think the point to me about digital print is it doesn't half pop. You know, the color in it is just so gorgeous, and how it works with papers is so gorgeous. And it's still, honestly, I think it's an untapped medium. It's like, I was so excited about its potential, like, you know, 11, 12 years ago. And then we're all freaking out about AI now. And I sometimes think these innovations come and sometimes go without being fully explored. And there's so much more to explore in digital print. I love it. And it's such a, you know, if you're a print nerd, there's so much more to do with it than that hasn't been done yet. And isn't that a nice place to be, with effectively a thing which has probably been around for, you know, however long print has been around? What would we say, 800 years? You know, there's still new stuff to do.
That's awesome. Now, one thing that has continually come up with my conversations with other print designers is the lack of education in print design for the youngsters coming up into the market. I have a son who's just finishing up school in graphic design as well, in university, and they barely touched on it. You know, it's so focused on digital. Any thoughts on that?
I don't think the book will ever go away. You know, was Kindle the end of books? I think that there's some research from, I think, Finland, which said that children learn faster from a book than they will from a screen. And I think that's true. And if I've really got to understand something, I'd far rather, maybe it's my age, but I'd far rather have it in a book. It goes into my head. On a screen, it's like water off a duck's back. So I think that just the pure utility of books, their ability to transport, to give you information, makes them worth having. And beyond that, of course, as artifacts, they're things of beauty, aren't they? So is print dead? No, I don't think so. Is it going through trying times? Absolutely. But I think it will endure, because there is something about the real which still matters. You know, what in psychology they'd call it an object with transference or something. Do you know what I mean? It's like meaningful things to us. It's like, you know, if you've got a newspaper headline of, I don't know, JFK shot or whatever, well, you're not going to show people a screenshot, are you? But if you've got the newspaper, it matters. And I think that, you know, I think it's still there as a thing, still as a thing of beauty, and still there as a thing of utility. And I don't believe it's going anywhere. And obviously in packaging, you know, it's all very well having the digital communication, but packaging print is the last interruptive medium. I don't have to watch a YouTube advert. I'll turn away. I don't have to listen to a radio ad. I'll go and do something more interesting. But if I want to get a product, I've got to go through the pack, which means that in a world of media fragmentation, packaging is probably the last interruptive media, and therefore print is not dead. Yay! To all those involved in it.
Wow. Well said. Well said. This has been an absolute joy to have this conversation, Silas.
Thank you, Chris.
Really
Thanks for
appreciate
being
it.
so gracious and taking an interest.
Oh, I love it. And the only thing I ask as we finish this up is, can we have another one?
We can have another one when the dust has settled, for sure. Of course.
Perfect.
All right.
Well, thank you, Silas, for joining the art gallery here on Print Island. Look forward to having our next conversation.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.